they're trying to set us up for the possibility here. We may have a president who goes full-on gibberish-speaking cognitive decline in public in one incident that is irretrievable.
Yeah.
We may have Joe Biden break down in the next year or sooner and just start spewing total nonsense. They keep saying it's a stutter. It's not a stutter, folks. I saw Biden speeches 20 years ago. It's not that he is. It's not that he has some childhood. That's total malarkey. Okay, Clay. I think we may have a real moment of crisis where it is clear that the president of the United States in office starts spewing true nonsense. I mean, starts essentially speaking in gibberish. And we realize that the 25th Amendment actually has to be used. I think that's what people around him are realizing.
33% approval in the New York Times poll. This is the lowest Joe Biden approval rate that I have seen anywhere. And we know the New York Times is not exactly predisposed to favor Republican-leaning politicians or anything. If anything, this is biased still in Biden's favor. But 64% of Democrats, and you and I were texting over the weekend, Sunday front page New York Times, essentially that article, which was devastating to Joe Biden, argues that he doesn't have the capability to be president. There were a bunch of different details, but one of them was, hey, we're initially planning to go from Europe to the Middle East and be on the road for 10 days, and we didn't think he could do it. So we went all the way back across the Atlantic. Now they're coming back to the Middle East, Saudi Arabia, Israel. Buck, that combo, and the reason why it's important to me is when they published that article on Sunday, they knew they were going to double barrel him, for lack of a better way to phrase it, on Monday with this poll. In other words, all of the editors had this in planning. And it seemed like Sunday and now Monday, they are, the media now, trying to make it so that Joe Biden is unable to run for re-election in 2024. That was my read. You agree, disagree? How would you assess these combo stories, front page from the New York Times, and their significance?
So he's the oldest president in American history,
yes,
which was actually written in the New York Times. It's interesting, not because we didn't know that. Obviously, the president's age has been public all along, but you don't hear them ever say it in that way. This is literally the oldest president we have ever had in the history of the Republic. And he's telling us he wants 6 more years, everybody, okay?
Yes.
6 more years is what he is saying he wants right now. This is completely outrageous and unacceptable. I think, Clay, because I was looking at the parts of the New York Times piece that really stuck out to me. First of all, they do this thing, which is the classic, well, behind closed doors, he's sharp as a tack.
Oh, yeah.
And he's correcting where our commas are misplaced in speeches. And
on page 14.
Out in public, it's a little more a touch and go. I think the Democrats have and they said things like they're limiting his schedule. He basically isn't available at night. They don't let anyone see him from the press on the weekends. I mean,
yes,
this is the retired and out of public life presidency for a guy who shouldn't have been in charge in the first place, even when he was in a good state of mental health. I mean, I think Joe Biden was unimpressive even before he was in cognitive decline. But he's operating this kind of quasi-retired presidency right now, which is obviously not what we want. Here's where I think we're heading, though. They talked about fear of him having a sundowner moment, right, of sundowning, where if you have Alzheimer's or dementia, you can, from the late afternoon into the into the evening or at night, really just be completely not of sound mind. I mean, you can basically be speaking in gibberish. I think the people around him are realizing, with all the stage managing they're doing and they're worried he's going to trip. They see that he's shuffling. This is from the New York Times, and this is the people that are with him all day long, folks, okay?
Yes.
They're trying to set us up for the possibility here. We may have a president who goes full-on gibberish-speaking cognitive decline in public in one incident that is irretrievable.
Yeah.
We may have Joe Biden break down in the next year or sooner and just start spewing total nonsense. They keep saying it's a stutter. It's not a stutter, folks. I saw Biden speeches 20 years ago. It's not that he is. It's not that he has some childhood. That's total malarkey. Okay, Clay. I think we may have a real moment of crisis where it is clear that the president of the United States in office starts spewing true nonsense. I mean, starts essentially speaking in gibberish, and we realize that the 25th Amendment actually has to be used. I think that's what people around him are realizing.
The data in here is pretty challenging for him, right? The number of, and I'll just kind of hit you with, in this article in the New York Times, Joe Biden has only given 38 interviews so far in his presidency. Trump did, and remember they were always talking about Trump and the 25th Amendment. At the same period in time, Trump had done 116 interviews. Barack Obama had done 198. And so you look at the last couple of presidents, and then I thought this was, the data points on what exactly is going on there are pretty crippling to Joe Biden. To combine this with, and Buck, the other number that's crazy about this poll that they released on the front page of the New York Times today, 94% of those under the age of 35 do not want Joe Biden to run for president again. These are Democrats. 64% of Democrats overall. 94% of those under 35. And in this New York Times piece from Sunday, Buck, it says basically the Harvard-Harris poll about the number of people that don't want him to run. 60% of those 65 and older do not want him to run. So look, this is a universal belief that I think when you look at that press conference, the awful one that he had, I guess it was on Friday, right, that we played some of the cuts from where he reads, end quote, repeat the line. There is right now an overwhelming certainty, whether you're a Democrat, Republican, or independent, that Joe Biden is not in a good place mentally. And Buck, 30 more months, as we've been talking about on this show for a long time. Look at what the presidency did to Barack Obama. Look at what it did to certainly when you look at the before and after pictures of George W. Bush. This guy has got 30 more months minimum of being president. And to your point, he's asking for 4 years on top of the 2.5 years that he already has remaining. It is not conceivable to me that this is possible.
I mean, the Democrats were so dishonest and so desperate to have somebody who could, in a pandemic year, defeat Donald Trump, that they have put a commander-in-chief in place who we can all see is one bad day away from saying crazy stuff on live television and drooling all over himself. One bad day away.
He couldn't do an hour interview with us, Buck. I mean, I've used this example before, but you and I went down to Mar-a-Lago. Trump had no handlers. He sat across the table from us, and he talked to us for a full hour. They said all the time Trump couldn't be president because of the 25th Amendment. If you and I got invited, we never would, but if they said, hey, we want you guys to come to the White House, we want you to do an hour interview with Joe Biden. Buck, I legitimately believe that after 1 hour talking to us, he would no longer be able to be president of the United States. I think it would go so poorly for Joe Biden, just trying to answer our questions without pre-scripting, without knowledge of what we were going to ask, that I believe that he would have to step down 1 hour with us.
The good news for the Republic, Clay, is that the founding fathers foresaw a possibility where someone may have to step in, a vice president even. The bad news is that we know who the vice president is right now. We know that the founders set up our system so that if for reasons of health or impropriety or some other possibilities we don't like to even think about, but that you need to have a vice president ready to go, right? So for continuity of government. So we are having a serious discussion here, an honest discussion about the clear lack of cognitive capability and energy as well, just day-to-day energy from the current occupant of the Oval Office, Joe Biden. Kamala Harris stands ready to step in at a moment's notice. That is the system we have. And here is your vice president.
When you look back, did Democrats fail, past Democratic presidents, congressional leaders, to not codify Roe v. Wade over the past 5 decades?
I do believe that we should have rightly believed, but we certainly believe that certain issues are just settled. Certain issues are just settled.
Clearly we're not.
No, that's right. And that's why I do believe that we are living, sadly, in real unsettled times.
I mean, can we just, I believe that we should have rightly believed that we believe that certain issues are settled, but now we believe we're unsettled. What does that mean?
Buck, it's a Roe v. Wade question in a sit-down interview. You know that you're going to get asked this question. This is like you and I doing an interview and them saying, hey, what's it like to be on the radio every day for 3 hours? This is not a surprise gotcha question. If they had quizzed her about the value of the bolivar relative to the dollar, I can see maybe where you have to have some filibustering there because you can't be an expert on everything. You know this question's coming. She's an imbecile. And that's what makes it all the more scary about the position that Joe Biden is in. Remember back in the days when we thought they wanted to make her the president?
No, this is why the panic isn't the sudden realization Biden's not up to this. It's the obviousness of it to the electorate that the Democrats are freaking out about. And their plan B situation here, their next option, is a vice president who they know cannot be the party standard bearer. That's why they're panicking.
And we know that things are only going to get worse for Biden. I mean, from here, every single day is worse.